So in this segment, I'm going to take this down more and make it a long, narrow drill bit. Okay, so it's going to be all pressure, so all pressure flaking for the most part. I don't see any good opportunities for indirect percussion yet. I think I can do the rest of it with pressure. Yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. If I notice that I can remove some of this lumpage, then I'll do it. I'm going to start the drill narrowing right about there. We'll see. Just downward pressure. At this point, I can just bevel the whole thing. The basic shape I did kind of randomly in the previous video, but this one I can do with a beveling technique. Now starting to rock back and forth. It's okay because I'm just putting downward pressure. It's okay if it starts to rock and shift a little bit, because it really doesn't need inward pressure or anything fancy. No fancy pressure technique. Just try not to create step fractures. Because even though it doesn't matter on a drill, if you get a step fracture, it'll still bug you. Yeah, I've never encountered a problem with step fractures on drills. I don't know if the real ones had anything like that. I can't remember. I've got some real drills, but they're tiny. I don't remember seeing any step fracturing on them, but I did see some lumps on them. It's pretty hard to install a step fracture doing this type of thing if you're just pushing downward. I suppose if you're new and you want to get used to pressure flaking, just do beveling until you get the hang of it. It's just downward pressure. And you can start tweaking it by pushing inward a little bit later as you develop the hang of this. Now it is bugging me, that step fracture right there, so I'm going to try to pick it out. Yeah, it is bugging me right there, so I'm going to try to pick at it. I think that might interfere as well with the drilling if I narrow that tip anymore. Okay, I need to make sure I hold it so I'm backing up, because I'm pushing inward. I got to back it up against something back here. So I'm pushing inward to on the face of that step fracture. Yeah. So just 2 picks, pick, pick. And that's pretty flat. You can even grind the surface if you want to. And I've seen some drills with lots of wear, and it's hard to tell if it's wear or intentional grinding. I've seen a lot of wear on drills on this side. Not always, but I have seen some. Now, were all drills hafted? No, I don't think so. Is it good to have, like this this arrangement where it's beveled in one direction on both sides? Is it good to have it that way? Does it drill better? Yes, it does. It actually does drill better if you have it, if you only bevel it on one side of each face. I've noticed that it does drill better that way. But you don't have to do it that way. If you see an opportunity to take a flake off or a whole pass, it doesn't really matter too much. It's not going to destroy the drill if you don't have a bevel only on one side. You can resharpen it or shape it with 4 bevels instead of only 2. And when drilling, it's so much easier if the wood has a pith, so that you can actually dull this tip on purpose so it rides within the pith instead of rocking around inside there. If it's sharp, it'll dig too much of that weak material in the center, and it won't guide the rest of the drill. It'll kind of make its own way. If you dull this and it's just riding within the pith, it kind of guides the rest of the drill through the material. So you can dull this on purpose if it has a pith in the wood that you are drilling. Just so you know. To drill through solid wood is a real pain. Oh yes. With stone drills, it's a real pain to drill through a solid wood. Especially if you want to do a socket for a foreshaft into a solid shaft. Like, let's say you split the wood out for your shaft and it's just solid wood, no pith. Trying to drill a socket into that is a pain, because you do need a sharp tip in that case, and you have to make sure the tip doesn't wander. And the way you do that is you start with a small drill first, and then you get another drill, bigger drill, then you get another drill, bigger. Just keep increasing the size of the drills until you get the depth you want. So how narrow do I want to go with this? I want to go pretty narrow, just so you guys can see. Yeah, I don't want any step fractures. So you got to make sure you push up high enough on the edge that you can take off a flake without crushing. See, I didn't abrade or anything. You don't really need to abrade when you push downward, although it probably does help. It helps to prevent step fracturing. Although it doesn't matter too much if you get one. Yeah, it's getting to the point where it's at the diameter of an atlatl dart foreshaft, so I don't want to go any more narrow than that. Now, of course, it'll be more narrow for an arrow point foreshaft. But those drills usually are not this long. I'm just removing some lumps because it's easier to continue if I don't have a lump. Okay, I am pushing a little bit inward on this because I want to get rid of some of that lumpage, but I got to watch it that I don't remove too much from the edge, and I got to watch that I don't put in a large bulb of pressure anywhere. Because the bulb of pressure will weaken the edge. Okay. I don't know. I seem to have plenty of light, but I don't know if I got the lamps right above where I'm working. I hope it's bright enough. Maybe my viewfinder is dark because the sunlight is bright. I don't know. Doesn't make sense. Hopefully it's brighter for you than it is for me because I can't see that well. And when you're using the drill, it'll tell you where the problem areas are when you start drilling, because you'll see gunk building up in areas where it's either removing too much or not enough. You might see gunk. So most of the time you'll just see how it's progressing by the way it's getting dull. Yeah, it depends on what you're drilling. You don't get much residue with fully dry wood. I like to drill wood that is fully dry. Takes longer, but it yields a much better result. Plus, you don't have to wait to dry it out. You know, you can use it right away. And so if the shaft is already dry, you can use it right away. So I'm pressing on flat spots between these deltas, I guess you call them. You can press on the deltas or in between. Right now I'm pushing in between. And then I'll push off on the deltas in a minute. There's not that many. I mean, they don't stick out that much. Of course, you don't want it too dull. You know, you don't want it to become circular in cross section. You want to have a diamond shape. Circular works fine. I mean, if it's really, really thick and it starts getting circular, that's fine. It'll still drill, but you won't have much use life from it because it'll be hard to resharpen. Once it gets dull, if it's really thick and circular, you're going to have a hard time resharpening that. If at all. Now how do you do a drill that's really circular? You just follow this procedure until you can't knap it anymore. It's pretty much exhausted. If you have a circular cross section on a drill, you pretty much exhausted that drill. So you don't want it any thicker than the width. As long as the thickness is less than the width, it'll drill just fine. You could get technical and try to match, but then again, you know, you're not going to have much use life out of it. So, let's see. Yeah, I can take it down a little bit more. Now, having it centered in the stem is not that important. You don't need to have the blade centered on the stem, because when you haft it, you're going to be twisting it anyway to see if you've hafted it in line with the shaft that you're hafting it to, right? So, I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect down here. You know what I mean? It just needs to be as straight as possible in that direction. Okay, so I took back the edge here. So it's not straight right now. It's kind of curved. So I'm going to go back and straighten it. There's a lump right there. There's a lump here. And a lump there with step fracture remnants. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I should go for those or try to remove those, but I will anyway. sharpened it because I really need to get precise here. Now it's just a matter of refreshing the edge. Why did I do the whole, why did I abrade the whole edge? Because I'm trying to make it more narrow anyway. Symmetry is very important with drills, if it's going to be used to drill wood or something. Perforator, not an issue. Knife, just a narrow knife, not an issue. But a drill for drilling into wood or antler needs to be symmetrical. I don't know why I'm messing with this down here. I guess I just want it to be nice and even. It gets messed up anyway. As you start drilling, all this symmetry, all this work to try to get it symmetrical, it's not really going to stick. It's going to become unsymmetrical pretty fast. And you just repair it. As it chips, you just repair it as it chips. And if there's some spots that are way too dull that you can't knock off any pressure flakes, just leave it. As long as the other side from that dull spot has some cutting ability, it'll still work. So you notice I sharpened the tip for this last stage. When I've used drills in the past, stone drills, it's much easier if you have a very sharp pressure flaker to maintain the drill edge. Now, I think some of you guys have collected drills before, and you'll notice that on some of them, these are really big flakes. And it's perfectly symmetrical. There's big flakes taken out of the sides. It's not minute little flakes, and the edges are not perfectly straight, but the whole thing is really straight and symmetrical. What is that? Well, it could either be a drill or a knife. If it's got big flakes taken out with a lot of deltas still on the edge, and it's not finely toothed like this, in my opinion, it's a knife. A drill is going to have fine teeth, very fine teeth, in my opinion. All right, so I don't want to go any more narrow than that because then it wouldn't look real. For a drill, anyway. Perforators, it doesn't matter. I'm going to make the blade a little longer. I got some time. I'm just going to make the blade a little bit longer. You need to do this anyway with a real drill, especially if the tip breaks off. You'll need to make it the blade longer. So the more you have down here to extend the blade into, the better off you'll be, especially if you're drilling into something difficult. Right? Right. Yeah. I'm just messing with it now. I got time. I could put some notches in it. Yep. Now, can you use this as a projectile point? Sure. I don't know why you would want to, though. Too delicate, in my opinion. Oh, I just took off some of that. Yeah, I just broke off some of that. Oh, well. Just got to symmetritize it. Yeah, symmetritize is a word. That's good enough. I don't know if there were drills that actually look like this, but oh well. That'll haft up nicely. Or you can just hold it in your hand. You can drill like that, or you can rotate the shaft around. Let's see, does that have a, you can just rotate, you can hold this steady and just rotate the shaft around. Like this. You know, the way I do it is you're gonna have to move the drill up and down, but you can do it like this. See how that works? Just hold it in your hand. Or you can put it in the shaft and you can, you know, do this kind of thing. I'm zoomed way in. Do that with this down below. Okay. So that's the final product. Where's my... I need a background. Let's see. There we go. There's a drill. It's not pointy. Yeah, it is Edwards Plateau chert. I try to get the edge as straight as possible. Very fine teeth on it. And I put a couple notches just for grins and giggles, just to use up the time. Alrighty.